Sergio Perez's 2024 Red Bull seat is now at a huge risk due to Daniel Ricciardo's superior performance on his home turf at the Mexico Grand Prix. Despite not having a fully healed hand, Daniel Ricciardo displayed remarkable speed over the weekend in Mexico. He secured a strong P4 in qualifying and followed it up with an impressive P7 finish in the main race, which marked the best performance for Alpha Tauri this year. In contrast, Sergio Perez experienced a heartbreaking race on his home turf. Could Daniel Ricciardo's outstanding performance in Mexico influence a change in Red Bull's 2024 drivers' lineup? Today, the Grid Report presents an analysis of Daniel Ricciardo's exceptional weekend at the Mexican circuit and its implications for both Alpha Tauri and Sergio Perez. Well, before we get into that, kindly subscribe and like our channel, and without ado, let's get talking. In only his second weekend back since sustaining a broken hand at Zandvoort, Ricciardo was one of the stars and shock performers in qualifying at the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez, claiming a sensational P4 on the grid, narrowly behind the two Ferraris and season dominator Max Verstappen. This grid position is typically associated with another Red Bull car, but as this season has demonstrated, Sergio Perez fell far behind the pace in qualifying. Ricciardo's amazing weekend was completed in the main race when he clinched a P7 finish, a huge result for his AlphaTauri team, securing the team's best position of the season as well as his first points since returning to the Faenza squad in the second half of the season and his subsequent injury layoff. He scored an amazing 6 points. The result was a huge relief for the team, especially after the car problems Ricciardo experienced in Austin. The team boss apologized to Daniel after the awful US Grand Prix and promised to make amends. Amends he surely did, and it paid off massively for both the driver and the team. After last week, this is the weekend I dreamed of, Ricciardo told Sky Sports. Although he was full of smiles after the race, Ricciardo felt a bit disappointed and unlucky that the red flag brought out for Kevin Magnussen's dramatic crash had cost him. He would have finished P5. The red flag for Kevin's accident gave cars around him the option to bolt on the preferred medium tyres, which Ricciardo no longer had available. He was powerless to resist the impressive Lando Norris in the second part of the race and also had to settle behind the Mercedes of George Russell. Speaking after the race, Ricciardo felt being able to race a Mercedes on merit outweighed the disappointment of not holding on to a top 5 finish. It's honestly the red flag that hurt us, but I don't want to say it too selfishly because there was a big accident. It bunched everyone up and allowed some cars to use a medium, which we didn't have. But to still come out with 7th and 6th points, we have to be very happy. We got very close to George at the end. I think the big picture, just to be battling the Mercedes at the end, makes me more happy than missing out on 6th. Ricciardo said, reminiscing about the hard-fought battle with Russell right to the end of the race. The Mexican Grand Prix was, without a doubt, headlined by Max Verstappen of Red Bull as he secured a record 16th win of the season, as well as the sister team AlphaTauri driver Daniel Ricciardo, who amazed the F1 world with a P7 finish. But what does Ricciardo's performance mean for AlphaTauri? Before the race in Mexico, AlphaTauri was standing in last place in the Constructors' Championship, but was however in contention to move ahead due to the brilliance displayed by Yuki Tsunoda in Austin. Although Ricciardo had a race to forget in Austin, the opposite was the case in Mexico as he produced AlphaTauri's best result of the season. The brilliance of Ricciardo in Mexico, where he scored his team 6 points, moved AlphaTauri 2 places up in the Constructors' Championship past Haas and Alfa Romeo. With 16 points in total, AlphaTauri are on equal points with Alfa Romeo, but ahead in the standings. The upgrades to the cars by AlphaTauri were indeed a successful move and couldn't come at a better time. The upgrades were made ahead of the US Grand Prix. Before then, the team was only able to secure a total of 5 points in 17 races. However, after the upgrades, AlphaTauri has scored a total of 12 points in just 2 races. Big kudos to the team and its principal. Many questioned the decisions of Red Bull and its sister team AlphaTauri when they retained Daniel Ricciardo for the 2024 season alongside Yuki Tsunoda. Their decisions were questioned because of the impressive performances of Liam Lawson, who replaced Ricciardo when he sustained the hand injury. But after just 2 races back from the injury, The decision has been proven to be the right one. Asked about his return after the race in Mexico, Ricciardo had this to say: "It's more fun fighting at the front. It just feels better, feels right. So happy with the weekend, and we'll try to keep this thing rolling." Meanwhile, a day that promised a big haul of points for Alpha Tauri was hampered by a crash for Ricciardo's teammate Yuki Tsunoda when challenging Oscar Piastri for P7, the resulting spin leaving the Japanese driver 12th at the flag. If not for the intense battle, Tsunoda could have clinched another top 10 finish. This simply proves that things are finally working well in AlphaTauri. The strategies applied by the team are top-notch, the upgrades are working great, and the cars are way faster. They are, however, at risk of losing Daniel Ricciardo to Red Bull. Is Ricciardo's P7 finish in Mexico enough to convince Red Bull to replace Sergio Perez with him? Mexico held a lot of promises, and amongst them was the promise of Sergio Perez returning to his sensational form which we witnessed at the beginning of the season as he raced on his home turf. Unfortunately, it was a failed promise, as we witnessed one of, if not the worst, performance by the Mexican as he crashed out of the race at the very first corner of the very first lap. Perez collided with Charles Leclerc and was pitched up in the air. The subsequent suspension damage was more than enough to force his retirement from the race and further stack the pressure on him. Although his team boss, Horner, came to his defense after the race, there's no disputing the fact that Perez is unable to handle the pressure on him. Speaking about Perez after the race, Christian Horner had this to say: "Desperately disappointed for Checo, going for the lead of the race, a racing accident down at turn 1. To go out on the first lap in front of your home crowd is painful for him. He was very emotional, as you can imagine, but he's a racing driver. He had to go for it. You can't place the blame on any of the drivers. 3 into 1 is always going to be tough into one corner. And he had a rocket ship start, probably his best start of the year, and he was going for it in front of his home crowd," he added as he gave excuses for his driver. However, it's undeniable that Perez possesses the most superior car in the grid. He has no valid reason for delivering such awful results, especially when Ricciardo, with a comparatively less advanced car, outperforms him. Ricciardo's performance didn't go unnoticed, as the Red Bull team principal, Christian Horner, was particularly complimentary of the Honey Badger's result. "You couldn't fail to be impressed by Daniel this weekend. His qualifying was outstanding, and he showed his maturity, experience, and pace in the race. With just 3 races left, it seems highly possible that there might be a change in the drivers' lineup in Red Bull if Ricciardo maintains his impressive performances and Sergio Perez fails to get back in form. Do you think Red Bull should replace Sergio Perez with Daniel Ricciardo next season? Share your thoughts in the comment section below. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel to stay up to date on the latest F1 news. Until next time, goodbye.